And it has been another week of broken promises for Mark Carney. In fact, he's outright shattering all of his promises this week. He promised that Canada would have the fastest growing economy in the G7. He's delivered the fastest shrinking economy in the G7 with the second highest unemployment. He promised to spend less. His deficit is 100% more than Justin Trudeau's. He promised that there would be more investment in Canada. $54 billion has left in the 7 months he's been Prime Minister. And he promises to push out, now he admits he's going to push out $1 trillion more, and we'll return to that in a minute. He promised that he would negotiate a win with the U.S. with a deal by July the 21st. So far, no deal, no win. American tariffs on Canada have doubled. Yeah. And yesterday, after promising our auto workers and lumber workers he would defend them, he sold them out. He sold them out and accepted that, a day after he left the White House, the Secretary of Commerce said they will be keeping tariffs on Canadian finished automobiles, which will devastate our sector. Already, we're losing thousands of jobs in Ingersoll, 800 jobs with Cami in Ingersoll, hundreds of jobs in Oshawa with GM, while that company invests $4 billion more in the United States. We've also had 150 workers in Windsor told to down tools, and Stellantis, as that company announces, it will invest $8 billion more in the United States. But Mark Carney has sold out our auto workers and gotten absolutely nothing in return. Then there's our lumber workers. Since Mark Carney got elected promising to end the American tariffs, those tariffs have doubled, with massive job losses across British Columbia, Northern Ontario, and rural Quebec expected as a result of this latest Carney failure. I think we can now conclude that Mark Carney's entire elbows up campaign was a gigantic fraud. He didn't mean a word of it.
Yep.
His wife's firm was putting out memos in the middle of the campaign saying, don't worry about the Liberals promising to counter tariff and be tough on the U.S. They don't really mean it. They won't really do it. He was quietly removing the tariffs while going to campaign rallies promising to put them back on. He told the president in a phone call, I don't mean all that stuff I'm saying about you. So it means he's two-faced. And since the election has happened, he's done exactly the opposite of everything he promised. And I should be clear, this was not a promise. This was the promise he ran on in the election. It was the only thing that got him elected. He said, ignore 10 years of rising food prices, housing costs, out of control immigration and crime, because I'm the only guy who can negotiate with the Americans. And that turned out to be a gigantic fraud. So the entire foundation of Mark Carney's election campaign was not only a broken promise, it was a fraud for which thousands of Canadians are paying today with lost jobs. We cannot trust anything that Mark Carney says. And then there's this $1 trillion. It's time for him to do some explaining. Because I'm just reading his quote here. He says, we are the largest foreign investor in the United States, $500 billion in the last 5 years alone. Probably $1 trillion in the next 5 years if we get the agreement we expect to get. So that means he intends to put right in the agreement that he's going to push $1 trillion of investment to the United States. How is he going to do that? He said it would be private investment, so he's going to pass a law forcing pension funds and insurance companies to push their money to the States out of Canada. Is he just going to keep in place the high taxes and anti-development policies that have already forced hundreds of billions of dollars of investment abroad? And are the Americans committing to send $1 trillion back? If he says this is just normal capital flows between countries, surely then President Trump is going to be committing to $1 trillion of investment in Canada. To be clear, $1 trillion is the equivalent of a third of our entire GDP. It's like literally all the economic activity for 4 consecutive months. And Mark Carney wants to send it away. This means factories, mines, mills, and other businesses closing in Canada and opening in the United States. Where was that in Mark Carney's election platform, that he was going to push $1 trillion of Canadian investment to the U.S.? I'm very curious if any of you could find that. In fact, He has broken all of his promises, and we can't trust him anymore. We're in the House of Commons today. We are debating a Conservative motion exposing the insanity of doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. Remember, Justin Trudeau promised 10 years ago that deficits would lead to investment. That was what he meant when he said the budget would balance itself. Over in that building, he said,
he's trolling pretty good.
If you run deficits, they will spark investment, which will grow the economy, increase tax revenues, and the budget will balance itself. But Mark Carney wrapped it up in a more sophisticated sounding, but not all too different slogan, and it was a slogan: spend less and invest more, but it meant exactly the same thing, that government deficits would generate investment that would grow the economy. Well, how does it work over the last 10 years? Because it's exactly the same formula. Well, we've had the worst per capita growth in the G7. Per capita investment in Canada is actually down 10% in Canada. Again, the worst in the G7. They then repromised this during COVID. They said after COVID was done, they were going to make generational investments that would grow our economy. And here we are, our per capita GDP is smaller than it was in 2019. And they expect to repeat this same lead to gold, deficits to investment promise that they've been breaking for 10 years. The only difference between Carney and Trudeau is that Carney dresses up his monster money-losing deficits and the respectability of a banker's suit with more sophisticated slogans and even bigger costs. But it will, at the end, have the same deadly results for our economy. Less investment, less jobs, higher costs. So we need a change. We need Conservatives who will cut the cost of government to cut the cost of living, who will focus on stronger paychecks, safer streets, secure borders in a self-reliant Canada. We know what we have to do this. Cut bureaucracy, consultants, foreign aid, gifts to handouts to phony refugee claims, corporate welfare. Bring down the deficit, the taxes, and the inflation. We need to get the government out of the way to build big projects, not just the Keystone Pipeline. And I want to congratulate President Trump for supporting the Keystone Pipeline for the last 8 years. Only the Liberals have opposed that pipeline.
Good job.
They didn't get it done. And now suddenly we seem to be on the verge of a flip-flop by Mark Carney.
Work with
Trump. But here's the problem for Carney.
Good job.
What's he going to put in the pipeline? He has a production cut that is in law, that he wants to cut back on the production of oil in Alberta. So that means there won't be enough oil output in Alberta to fill the pipeline as long as Carney's policy is in place. So what does he want to put in this new Keystone XL pipeline? He wants to pipe Crown Royal to the Americans? I mean, what's he going to fill it with? Unless, of course, he flip-flops again. Remember, he voted in the House of Commons 10 days ago to keep the cap on Canadian emissions and production. He said publicly that he would keep the production cap. So is Mark Carney going to admit that just like on the carbon tax and the electric vehicle mandate, he was wrong and the Liberals are going to break their promise and flip-flop? Because that is the only way we will produce enough oil to fill that pipe. Conservatives would get rid of all these Liberal policies. We would unleash production. We would open this country for business, make it the richest nation on earth, a nation where the promise of Canada is alive and well, where people who work hard get a great paycheck, an affordable home, great food, in a safe neighborhood under our proud flag. Thank you.
Good. Pierre Poilievre is now slowly becoming a little bit more, very subtly, more and more pro-Trump. He did it yesterday by congratulating Trump. Literally 1 minute, 60 seconds. Look at the timestamps on Twitter if you want. 60 seconds before Mark Carney on finding a deal in the Middle East for releasing the hostages out of Hamas and having, a deal agreed upon between Israel and Hamas. This is incredible. Pierre Poilievre is slowly becoming a little bit more pro-Trump. And liberals are realizing that Carney's as pro-Trump as it gets. They're literally best friends. This is what I recommended Pierre to do from the beginning. He didn't really do it, but now he's doing it. I want to congratulate Trump for being pro-pipeline for the last 8 years. Good job, Pierre. This is how you win. This is phenomenal. Work with the Trump administration. I like this.
Thank you. We will now open the floor to questions from media.
The nice
Please
man was going to give me a round of
identify yourself and your
applause.
outlet.
Why did you guys stop him?
Sure. Hi, Annie Bergeron-Oliver with CTV
Sure.
National News. You talk about major projects. Today, the head of Carney's new major project office was at committee, and she says that her aspiration is it would take 4 to 5 months to determine whether an Alberta pipeline is, quote, a project that should be designated in the national interest. What do you think of this timeline, and is this a project that the government should be greenlighting?
Well, it's too slow, and the government should greenlight it today. The government should signal that they favor, the federal government favors a pipeline from Hardisty, Alberta, beautiful Hardisty, Alberta, to the Pacific coast, probably Kitimat or Prince Rupert. And, you know, we know the economics make sense. We know that there are private businesses that will be glad to build it once there's a permit provided by the government.
Good.
The only thing Mark Carney needs to do, two things I just say. This is exclusively a federal decision. So David Eby is well worth ignoring. He has no legal and constitutional authority to block this project. It's all up to the federal government. The federal government and Mark Carney need to do only one thing to make it happen. Get out of the way. If they get out of the way and grant a permit, there will be billions of dollars of private money that will rush in and build this pipeline with lightning speed, because it is massively profitable to take underpriced oil from Alberta and send it to 2.5 billion Asian customers who will pay the full world price. Mark Carney, get out of the way and let Albertans and Western Canadians build a beautiful pipeline.
Thank you. Next question.
Good.
Bonjour, Monsieur Poilievre.
I like that. But also, David Eby is getting in the way. So blasting David Eby might not be the worst thing. And then also acknowledging that if these communists don't get out of the way, the pipeline would go to America, because Danielle Smith has already said that. If he shined a little bit more of a light on that, I think that would be positive, in my opinion.
Émilie Bergeron, La Presse canadienne. Vous avez énuméré il y a quelques instants.
On informe le gouvernement vouloir utiliser partisans et politiques souverains, protégeant le gouvernement libéral d'adopter nos bonnes idées pour qu'on puisse renforcer notre pays et obtenir un bon deal pour le Canada avec les États-Unis.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, Mr. Poilievre. Can I ask you about Gaza? Just your thoughts on a ceasefire in Gaza, what role you'd see for Canada moving forward. And can I ask you as well, I mean, you've rightly condemned Hamas, but do you have any concerns with how Israel has carried out its campaign in Gaza?
Thank you for your question. And first of all, let me congratulate President Trump on a historic peace deal. This could be the beginning of a very beautiful, peaceful period in Middle East history. Let's all hope it is. But it took his leadership, his diplomacy, and his strategy in order to secure this deal. And it is up to Hamas now to respect its side, hand over all of the hostages, and disarm itself, stay behind the line, and allow the peace to go forward. You know, we want Palestinians and Israelis to live in peace, prosperity, and harmony. And hopefully there's a very bright future for all of the Abrahamic peoples who cherish the Holy Land. Here at home, I want to condemn again the rampaging anti-Semitism that we have seen in our streets, Jews having to live in terror as these monsters throw Molotov cocktails and shoot bullets at children's schools, at synagogues, and terrorize our Jewish communities. It's totally unacceptable. Canada must always stand against anti-Semitism here and all around the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Decent answer.
Mr. Poilievre, Raisa Patel, the Toronto Star, you've suggested that if you were Prime Minister, you would be able to reach a deal with the U.S. that had no tariffs. What negotiating skills or tactics or information do you possess that the Prime Minister does not have?
Well, first of all, you want to talk about the Prime Minister's skills. He's very good at getting jobs, terrible at doing them. Every job he's had, he's been either taking credit for things he did not do or done a terrible job himself. You know, in Great Britain, he caused, he had the second highest inflation of any other G7 country when he was the governor of the Bank of England. He caused the housing crisis in that country. And he set up this green alliance designed to defund our entire energy sector. That's fallen apart. When he was a corporate lobbyist, his specialty was stashing his cash away in offshore tax havens, moving money out of Canada. So he's been very good at getting jobs, very bad at actually doing the jobs like we see right now. As for my approach, first of all, I would negotiate from a position of strength by unlocking our resources. I would repeal the anti-energy laws, C-69, C-48, so that we can legalize production of our minerals, oil, gas. I would rapidly approve pipelines to Tidewater so that we can have other markets that we can reach. I would get rid of the capital gains tax on any monies reinvested in Canada so that we could bring home the hundreds of billions of dollars that Mr. Carney brags that the Liberals have pushed out of our nation. That would give us a position of strength from which to negotiate. And then I would work with the Americans on a deal that would see Canada massively increase its military might and take its burden of protecting our continent, while at the same time having reciprocal free trade across our borders that will allow both of our countries to be stronger, safer, and richer. Thank you.
Thank you. Last question.
Jillian Piper with Global News. On Keystone XL, why are you supporting building a pipeline into the United States when Canada is looking to diversify its economy away from the U.S. right now?
Well, we should build pipelines in every direction. It's a good question. We need to build pipelines south, east, west, maybe even north. But the reality is that it would be better to have it than not to have it. We would be able to move, depending on the size, anywhere between 500,000 and 1 million barrels of oil to the U.S. market. Some of it, I think, would even make it through to the U.S. Gulf Coast, getting world prices rather than the discount rate we now accept. And it would be good for both the Canada and the U.S. It would hopefully create jobs for steel workers on both sides of the border. But you are right. We need a pipe to the Pacific. And you know that Mark Carney, I'd challenge you to find a single example of him ever saying he supports an oil pipeline to the Pacific. Has he even said it once? He's been running, he started running in February, so it's been, what, 9 months? He's never once been clear that he wants an oil pipeline from Alberta to the Pacific. He did testify in the industry committee, under my questioning, that he was against such a pipeline. It's time for Mark Carney to stop playing dodgeball. The decision is going to be on his desk. He has the legal authority and the constitutional power to approve or deny that pipeline. He is the only one. And my message, I'm very clear. I would approve a pipeline to the Pacific from Alberta in a millisecond. Mark Carney's had 7 months as Prime Minister. It's time for him to come clean on his position.
Phenomenal answer. Very good. I would approve the pipeline to the Pacific Coast in a millisecond. That is great. Good job. That type of rhetoric, that type of messaging is what we need right now in Canada. Because no matter if you're on the right or the left, we all know that Canada needs to be united and Canada first and blah, 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 blah. This is how you do it.
Okay. Last question.
Monsieur Poilievre, Monsieur Poilievre,
sont en français. Quel message est-ce que ça envoie aux francophones?
C'est un manque de respect flagrant de M. Carney envers la langue française. Il devrait essayer de parler plus souvent. J'ai aucun commentaire sur la qualité de son français, rien du tout. Je respecte tous les anglophones qui essaient de parler français. Évidemment, mon français n'est pas parfait non plus, mais comme vous le remarquez, je commence presque tous mes discours en français et je pense que c'est l'obligation de tous les chefs fédéraux de respecter la langue française en parlant souvent et partout au pays en français.
What do you make of London's comments that Canada's oil sector should come second?
Yeah, thank you. There's a question on. So just this is.
What do you make of Lutnick's comments that Canada should come second when it comes to the auto sector? And this is after months of negotiations.
Yeah, this is another terrible failure by Mark Carney. The day after Carney was in the White House, the Commerce Secretary to the U.S. administration came out and said that our Canadian auto sector should come second. This is after Mark Carney has made concession after concession, recently promising $1 trillion of investment for the U.S., and he's accepting second place for Canadian auto workers and continuing tariffs on our finished products. I think of the hard-working auto workers in Oshawa, in Windsor, in Brampton, who are terrified of losing their jobs because of this diplomatic failing by their prime minister. Mark Carney has sold out our auto workers and failed them completely. We need a prime minister who will stand up and fight for auto jobs here and always.
Thank you. This concludes today's event.
This nice gentleman has been waiting long enough. He had a very important question. Yeah.
Attaboy.
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is shaping up to be the 10th Liberal promise-breaking, high-cost, deficit spending budget. And with that, Mark Carney is increasing the cost of living and threatening the jobs of Canadians. I will be sitting down with Mr. Carney with a clear plan for him to reverse course on his costly budget plans and instead go with an approach that brings stronger take-home pay, secure streets, solid borders in a self-reliant Canada. And I hope that he will take my ideas because Canadians are ready for them.
Thank you, folks. Right. That concludes today's press conference. We have to get off to question period.
Oh, he's doing another. We don't know what the question is.
Well, first of all, Sean Fraser, can you imagine? This guy is a human wrecking ball. Like, seriously, he was the Minister of Immigration that destroyed he destroyed the best immigration system in the world. Look at the graph. This was our immigration rate all along until someone named Sean Fraser came along and increased our population growth by 300% almost overnight. He single-handedly destroyed the consensus we had on immigration. He destroyed our housing market, our health care, and our job market. This one guy, and Mark Carney has promoted him now to be the Minister of Justice. So for him to lecture anybody on any matters of immigration is the height of Liberal hypocrisy and shows nothing has changed after 10 years of the Trudeau government to the Carney one. Now, on birthright citizenship, we've got, because of Mark Carney's former immigration minister, Sean Fraser, we have roughly, 3 million temporary residents here in Canada. And the risk is that some might think that the only way to stay is by having a kid here. And at the end of the day, our system is already overrun. Our health care, our housing cannot afford to do that. And so what Ms. Rempel is saying is that for everyone who is an immigrant to Canada as a permanent resident or a citizen, of course they can pass on citizenship to their kids. But if you're coming here as a visitor and neither parent has an attachment to Canada as a permanent resident or citizen, they can't pass citizenship down the line. I think that is a perfectly common sense approach. We have to get rid of the Liberal insanity in our immigration system and return to the best system in the world. Thank you. At the appropriate time. Thank you. I got to go to question period.
Thank you very much.
I got to go to question period. Mark Carney's going to be very upset with you if I miss question period, so I can't do that. He's going to be. I don't want to break his heart. I'm going to go to the House of Commons to see Mark Carney.
Thank you, folks. Merci.
Okay, I can get on board with this.